Nearly 4 years ago, Volkswagen introduced a new entry-level subcompact SUV to America called the Taos. Now, the Taos was a pretty big deal for the company because this vehicle was designed to essentially replace the entry-level Golf as one of the most affordable crossover-type vehicles that you can buy here in North America. Now, for 2025, it's time for Volkswagen to give the latest Taos its first round of updates. And they're the usual upgrades that we talk about here often. We've got new styling on the front, we've got an updated interior with their latest MIB3 software, and underneath the hood, Volkswagen has massaged the turbocharged engine to give us about 16 more additional ponies. So this week, as you can see, we are testing out this 2025 Taos SE Black in this monument gray exterior color. And the big question I want to answer, for those of you who are looking for an entry-level compact SUV, has Volkswagen made enough changes to the Taos to keep buyers coming into showrooms? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the updates that Volkswagen has made to the exterior design, let me first talk about what they've done underneath the hood. Now, all Taoses still come with a 1.5-liter gasoline direct injection turbo 4-cylinder. However, they've made some hardware and software changes to basically get out another 16 ponies versus the pre-refresh version. Now, as you can see underneath the hood, you're going to find essentially a transverse mounted engine, and that's because the Taos continues to be built on the classic MQB architecture. So it's not the newest MQB Evo that we just saw on the redesigned Tiguan, but this powertrain makes pretty average power for the segment. It's a 1.5-liter TSI turbocharged gasoline direct injection 4-cylinder that now makes 174 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. The torque figure actually stays the same, but again, the old model had about 158 horsepower, so 174 certainly brings it up to higher levels in this particular segment. It all goes out through a one-choice 8-speed automatic transmission. So previously, Volkswagen offered a choice between an 8-speed auto on front drive or a 7-speed dual clutch on all-wheel drive. Our test car here is the front-wheel drive model. Now all of them use the 8-speed torque converter automatic. Now the front-wheel drive model makes this vehicle more fuel efficient. It's rated at 28 in the city and 36 on the highway, about 31 combined. It has a 13.2 gallon fuel tank. You're looking at just under 400 miles of range, according to the EPA, on a full tank using regular grade gas. Now keep in mind, if you guys get 4Motion all-wheel drive, it drops the MPG by 3 total, so around 28 combined, but the fuel tank does go up to around 14.5 gallons, which is kind of nice how Volkswagen gives you a slightly larger fuel tank for the thirstier all-wheel drive version. Sadly, there is no hybrid offered. Hybrids are kind of rare in the segment, but they are starting to pop up. Toyota was the first, and then now Subaru's coming out with the hotly anticipated Crosstrek hybrid. Now, Volkswagen doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time. We'll get it out when we, with our testing equipment, when we get this vehicle out on the road. Top speed should be about 124 miles an hour. And the Taos, sadly, is not recommended to tow by Volkswagen. I've seen reports of some people claiming it can tow up to 1,500 pounds, but Volkswagen actually says they don't recommend towing. As this car sits, it is a relatively lightweight vehicle, weighing at around 3,200 pounds. Keep in mind, going with all-wheel drive will increase the weight by about 200 pounds. Now, closing that heavy hood, let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling changes that Volkswagen has made to the Taos this year. Now, as you can see, the front end looks completely different versus the pre-refreshed model. We have some of their newest styling cues. This particular color that I'm showing you is called Monument Gray with the two-tone black roof. It's an extra $455. You can see the hood has kind of like a wide look to it with some character lines. The Volkswagen logo here is front and center. It does not illuminate like some of the newer Volkswagen products, but you do have the LED light bar that goes across the entire front fascia, almost connects, but the logo actually disconnects the two lines. You have an updated headlight design. You can see all Taoses come with their signature IQ light projector style full LED headlights, which include an LED daytime running light, LED turn signals. These headlights are also adaptive, so they actually swivel in the direction that you turn your headlights. That's included when you guys go for the SE trims, which is kind of an unexpected touch, especially in this class. You can see the lower fascia has some large openings where you can see the big intercooler behind it, or the intercooler behind it. You can see the gloss black paint with the flat gray, along with this kind of interesting grille texture. Certainly gives it a more aggressive look. I also like the new headlight signature design. I do wish the Volkswagen logo lit up, but Again, this is their entry-level SUV, so you can't get it all. But overall, I do think that the refresh creates a slightly more sophisticated design, although I didn't really hate the look of the pre-refresh model. It just looks like it's more in line with the rest of the VW family. Now, moving around the side profile, remember, this is designed to replace the Golf in their lineup, and this is a smaller SUV versus the Tiguan, with a wheelbase of 103.9 and an overall, 105.9 and an overall length of 175.9. This is about the same size as a Subaru Crosstrek. Compared to the new Volkswagen Tiguan that I drove, this vehicle is roughly around 9 inches shorter. So again, pretty small car. From some angles here, the car actually almost looks more like a hatchback as opposed to an SUV. And that's because we are driving around in the SE Black, which comes with these unique 18-inch black finish wheels on a pretty skinny 215/50 R18 tire. Now, those gloss black wheels, I'm not really a fan of, but you can get a 19-inch wheel and like a two-tone design if you'd like on the SEL. You have a 12.4-inch rotor at the front, a 10.7-inch rear disc at the back. A semi-independent rear suspension is included with the front-wheel drive models, and you also get less ground clearance at 6.5 inches. The all-wheel drive will increase the ride height by about an inch, so that makes it more of an SUV in its profile. There is some of that prerequisite cladding along the side of the vehicle to give this thing a more rugged look to it, but I actually kind of appreciate how Volkswagen doesn't do an off-road version, although I think a Peak Edition would do well, because think about how well the Crosstrek does in this class. People really like these off-roady style SUVs, so I think Volkswagen should consider that. Now, as you can see, the SE Black includes these black painted mirrors, black painted door handles. The black painted roof is optional, part of the or $450 extra, including the color. And then you can see the SE Black also includes a panoramic style sunroof, which is really nice, unexpected feature in this class. It's included on this trim and the SEL, along with those actual functional roof rails, where you could, I believe, get an actual crossbars to go across it. Backing away from this angle, I actually think it looks pretty nice, but again, you can really tell this is a front drive model from the skinnier tires and the lower ground clearance. So I personally would go for an all-wheel drive to get the independent rear suspension, the extra traction, and the increased ride height. Moving over to the rear, you can see the taillights have also been updated. They have that signature full LED light bar that goes across the back. You can see you have an LED turn signal, LED brake, and reverse lights. And then the logo back here actually does illuminate, so that's a nice touch. I believe it's included on the SE trims and up, although the base S could include it as well. You can see the rear wiper is sitting right there in the middle of the windshield or the rear window. You have a third brake light along with an integrated rear spoiler back there. There's also an SE badge here, and then the Taos badge is still kind of in the middle. If you guys get 4Motion, you'll have a separate 4Motion badge there that lets you know you have all-wheel drive. The rear bumper has these little fake rear exhaust tip things, although the SEL makes them, or SEL trim makes them chrome. On the SE, you can see they're just kind of a flat gray, which really makes them stand out as fake. Underneath here, you can see no skid plates or no independent rear suspension, like I said. The car in general, from this angle, kind of just looks like a hatchback. It looks like a, a modern version of a Golf. And then opening up the cargo area, you can see, unfortunately, Volkswagen does not offer a power liftgate on any version of the Taos, even the top SEL trim. Typically in this segment, you don't find it, but some competitors are getting it, like Hyundai offers it on the Kona, same thing with the Seltos, and the Corolla Cross also offers a power liftgate, so I was hoping Volkswagen would have offered that. But when you guys go for the front-wheel drive model with that semi-independent rear suspension, you do get more cargo space. You have just under 28 cubic feet of space with the second row seats, or with the seats up. There's no third row, obviously. If you look underneath the floor, you can see there is a temporary spare, so at least you don't have to deal with a fix-a-flat kit along with the usual tools. If you want to fold down the seats, Volkswagen basically makes it pretty easy. There's a ski pass through there. If you fold down the seats, as you can see, it doesn't create a completely flat load floor, unfortunately, but Volkswagen says with the seats folded, you get around 66 cubic feet of storage space. 66 cubic feet is actually pretty good. The all-wheel drive version will reduce the cargo capacity to 60 cubic feet with all the seats folded, and around 23 with the seats up. So you do get a little bit more space because of the compact design of that semi-independent rear suspension, but overall, the Taos, for how small it is on the outside, offers a pretty cavernous interior and good cargo space, especially when you consider the segment. Now moving on to the interior of the latest 2025 Volkswagen Taos. Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is Volkswagen's latest intelligent access key. It certainly isn't as upscale as the keys you'll find on an Audi product, but it certainly is a nice size. You have your usual buttons here. The SE trim adds the remote start functionality. So if I just push the lock button there, you can hear it has the little trademark horn honk. And then if you double tap that button there, you can see That'll activate the remote start. That is a great feature, so I highly recommend at least going for the SE trim to kind of get that option for it. As you can see, when you approach the door handle, traditional door handles with a button on the outside, you basically touch that button to lock the door. And when you want to unlock it, you also have to touch the button again. There's no sensor on the back of the door handle. Volkswagen sadly does not do an auto walk-away lock or unlock on the Taos, at least. I have seen that on other models, however. Now looking at the interior, you can see the SE Black basically includes this kind of combination of their cloud text, which is a synthetic leather with a cloth combination. You can see the black seats. This is the only color you can get with the contrast gray stitching and piping. Certainly looks pretty interesting. Keep in mind, if you go to the SEL trim, that'll actually include genuine Titan leather, which offers a choice between either like a dark blue leather or a combination of a gray and a black. So I like how Volkswagen's offering like a color, although I haven't seen that in person. You can see, looking at the door panels, Volkswagen said they improved the materials this year. You have a soft touch injection molded plastic with a silver painted plastic door handle, some glossy, slightly matte finish gray here. There's some more of the cloud text material here with a slightly padded area here for your armrest. The windows are actually one touch up down for all four. Love that feature. You don't typically find that in this class. Although the switches definitely feel like a slightly cheaper representation of what we've seen in other Volkswagen products. The lower door panel is a hard touch plastic material. Then my test car just has a 6-speaker standard audio system. They don't offer, I believe, their Harman Kardon. That's something that you can get as an upcharge on some competitors. If you go for the top trim, you can see there's like a 8-way power driver's seat here, which is kind of nice, which gives you like a 2-way lumbar support. Although no memory seats, these seats are just heated. They don't offer any kind of cooled function, which is something that you might find on some rivals, although it's typically not found in this particular class of vehicle. As I get inside, you can see, let's go ahead and shut the door. The door has a pretty solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is built on their latest MQB architecture, although technically not the latest. Now it's the MQB Evo. Now starting the vehicle up, you can see start stop button is right here by the shifter. Push that, you can hear this vehicle is not a hybrid or a mild hybrid, so it has a very traditional starter noise. And then if you guys appreciate tech, Volkswagen has improved the tech for this car, although it's technically not their biggest and best. You can see all Taoses come with their digital cockpit infotainment system or instrument panel, although this is not the digital cockpit Pro, which means you have a smaller 8-inch display. It is slightly customizable. By pushing this view button here, you can change the way this looks between, I believe, 3 different views with a big speedo there, or digital, or a tack here. Their SEL trim includes the digital cockpit Pro, which is a 10.3-inch display. And then all Taoses now come with their larger 8-inch display here with their latest MIB3 software. Technically, again, not the latest. MIB4 is their latest, and then now you can get like a 12.9 or up to a 15-inch display like in the new Tiguan. This display is starting to look a little small, but at least it still includes wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto if you go for the SE trims and up. The S trim has this display, but you have to plug in your phone via a wired connection. And then if you want GPS built in, you have to go for the SEL trim, of course. The dashboard material has a hard touch injection molded plastic. There's big sea of piano black plastic there that kind of goes into this slightly floating 8-inch display here. I don't like how there's a lot of unused real estate here. Again, they're keeping traditional hard buttons and knobs, which is nice, but even in this class of vehicle, some competitors are starting to go to like a 12.3-inch display, so this is definitely starting to look small. Even the HR-V, which Honda's so behind, has a 9-inch display, which is a little bit bigger than this. And then Toyota just updated the Corolla Cross to offer a 10.5-inch display, so kind of keep that in mind. There's more of that cloud text material from the door panel coming over onto the dash here. You have traditional manual air vents. You can see there's their dual zone climate control that's included when you guys go for the SE trims and up. You also get the heated rear seats, or the heated seats, 3 levels, but no cooled seats. You have these touch-sensitive panels to control the climate function, along with, again, actual volume knob there and tuning knob. The steering wheel, you can see, I appreciate how Volkswagen is just kind of using their actual hard buttons. There's also a heated wheel. Wasn't expecting to find a heated steering wheel with 3 levels of heat, which is kind of unexpected in this particular class. You do have a manual tilt and telescoping for the steering wheel. There's a pretty good amount of adjustability, so you can get a comfortable driving position with this car pretty easily. There's no paddle shifters and no drive modes with this car. Your only drive mode is basically putting the transmission from D to S, so I'll try that out later on when we get into the driving scene. The center console here has a wireless phone charging pad that's included when you guys go for the SE trims and up. If you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your backup camera, which has distance markers, trajectory, parking sensors. That's standard, of course. There's no 360 camera available. Most cars in this class, however, don't offer that feature. You have lots of blank buttons here. You do have an electronic parking brake, your start, stop, defeat button is there along with your parking sensor. Switch is there, of course. You have some more storage here with cup holders. And you can see the armrest is slightly padded. It doesn't adjust, however, and it doesn't even latch. It just kind of falls down. But if I open that up, you can see relatively deep storage area. Not the biggest, but it certainly is usable. The seats, I mentioned earlier, a combination of cloud text with some cloth, which is including with their synthetic leather. They are actually pretty well padded. They hold you in place nicely, but I would love to see the full leather that you get in the SEL trims, which I think will make a slight difference. Looking at the glove box, it's huge, it's damped. It's a bin style, it's not lined with felt, but it can literally fit all my camera gear. So I love how Volkswagen's giving you some nice storage options there. Overall visibility is pretty good. The A-pillar here is a pretty average size. The hood's nice and low. So overall, the interior definitely reminds you that this is their entry-level model, especially if you guys just hopped out of the new Tiguan, which comes standard with a 12.9-inch display and up to a 15-inch display. But overall, it's certainly not a bad place to spend time, and it certainly goes in line with the rest of the vehicles in this class at this price point. But let's go ahead and hop into the backseat area, and I can show you guys what that space is like. As you can see, the back seat does offer cavernous amounts of space. Now, Volkswagen says you have around 38 inches of legroom back here, which 38 inches is definitely among the best you're gonna find. The material quality back here is a hard touch plastic, so it's slightly downgraded. Also here, they don't put the cloud text, material. They do put it here at least where you rest your elbows, which is nice, but this seat also just basically folds down. It doesn't have a recline function, so kind of keep that in mind compared to some rivals. Now, getting back here, you can see this is basically where I'd have my driving position, and there's just so much space for me to stretch out at 5'7". You can see there's plenty of foot space. The floor is nice and low, although there's not a flat floor here. There's a hump there for the drive shaft if you guys go for an all-wheel drive version. I can easily cross my legs and get super comfortable. This roughly has like 3 to 5 more inches of legroom versus some of its rivals. You can see you do have rear seat air vents even on this lower trim. You have a USB, just one USB. A little storage area there. No heated rear seats. I don't think you can get that on this car, which is fine. You have 2 storage cubbies there, and then if you fold down this armrest, you can see there's 2 cup holders along with these adjustable head restraints. The headroom space, as you can see, pretty good considering the sunroof takes up some space into this cabin. But overall, as you can see, the backseat area is certainly a pretty good place to spend time, especially if you guys are coming from a much smaller vehicle that you're going to find in this class. So driving the updated 2025 Volkswagen Taos, it's kind of crazy that it's been a little over 3 years since the Taos, actually probably closer to 4 years since the Taos nameplate was first introduced. Remember, this car is kind of designed to be the replacement for the regular Volkswagen Golf, because Volkswagen discontinued the Golf in America a couple years ago when the Mark 8 came out. It only comes as a GTI version of this car, but regardless, it's still a fantastic vehicle, especially if you guys don't necessarily need the added space and the bulk that you get from the Tiguan or the Atlas. This is a car that is the entry point into the Volkswagen brand, so it's a very important model for the company. And I have to say, I didn't get a chance to drive the updated version of the Taos in Texas. I actually sent Rob to go do that. So now that we're behind the wheel of the updated model, this has roughly about 16 more horsepower versus the pre-refreshed version, courtesy of some hardware changes to the engine. This model that we're driving is the front-wheel drive version, which means it has the 8-speed auto, although technically Volkswagen now puts the 8-speed auto on all versions of the Taos. Previously, if you got the all-wheel drive version, you had a dual clutch, but with this 8-speed auto and around 174 horsepower, I'm not expecting this car to be a powerhouse, but let's go ahead and see what we can get, shall we? It's in its sport mode for the transmission. All right, and we got 0 to 60 in 8.37 seconds there. 8.37 seconds is perfectly acceptable. Remember, this class of car is dreadfully slow typically. I mean, among the quicker options would be like the turbocharged Hyundai Kona or the turbocharged Mazda CX-30. Now, technically, the Taos is also turbocharged, and I didn't get a chance to actually 0 to 60 test the pre-refreshed car, but 8.37 seconds should be sufficient for most people. Remember, some of the slower offerings would be like the Honda HR-V, which is like around 9 seconds. Same thing with the Corolla Cross non-hybrid versions. The Subaru Crosstrek can vary from like 7.8 to 9.3, depending on if you go for the 2.5 or the 2-liter Boxer engine. Overall, the front-wheel drive version, of course, has the semi-independent twist beam suspension at the back. So we technically don't have the all-independent suspension. And I think the reason for that is, for cost cutting. I think Volkswagen should have really included the all-independent suspension in all of their versions of the Taos. I shouldn't have to get all-wheel drive to get the better suspension, but the suspension tuning of this car really hasn't changed since it first came out. The steering of this vehicle is surprisingly quick. The Taos feels agile. Now remember, I'm driving the front-wheel drive model, so it weighs around 3,200 pounds. It's around 200 pounds lighter than the all-wheel drive version, and I'm actually genuinely liking how nimble this car feels. It has a nice planted feel to it. The suspension is more softly sprung, but what I am hearing a lot more of is road noise. This car tends to be a little bit loud. Now we're driving a model with the 18-inch wheels, which means we have a skinnier 215 wide tire. So I imagine the SEL with the bigger 19-inch wheels with the slightly wider tire is going to give you slightly better handling dynamics. I am noticing, however, that the ride quality, for the most part, is soft and comfortable, although you hit a bump and that, semi-independent twist beam suspension out back makes its presence known because the car will shudder, it'll skip around, and it's not the most refined there. That's where a lot of competitors, like I think the Crosstrek, has a slightly better, more controlled ride, although the all-wheel drive model should fix that, so there's another reason to go for all-wheel drive. In terms of visibility, the Taos is really easy to drive. It's really easy to see out of. I have a good view out of the front and the side and the rear. This car comes standard with their IQ Drive technology, so you have adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, automatic emergency braking, blind view monitoring, or all of that stuff basically comes standard on this car, which is a nice feature. The one thing I am surprised is no drive modes for this vehicle. There's basically just a sport mode and the transmission, but there's no actual drive modes in this model, which I guess most people in the segment aren't really going to care too much about that. You have to remember, what people are going to be using this car for, but with 184 foot-pounds of torque, this car has satisfying mid-range, and that's where vehicles like the Toyota Corolla Cross non-hybrid or the Honda HR-V are going to feel noticeably more sluggish, and I think that's going to, make this car feel faster than when it actually is in terms of the numbers. So in most day-to-day driving, I find the 8-speed to be smooth, relatively quick-ish in its responses. I have the transmission in its sport mode, so it's going to make it a little bit more responsive in getting it out of its top gear. But let's go ahead and try another run here, 0 to 60 wise, and see if it's consistent with the performance. I'm going to try brake torquing it this time. Definitely didn't like brake torquing it. You can actually hear some of the turbo whistle noises. 8.28 there, so that's slightly faster than our first time. We'll take that as our best time. That's, again, right in between the Subaru Crosstrek with its two different powertrain options with the 2-liter and the 2.5. So not the fastest, but not the mission of this car, remember, so keep that in mind. We'll go ahead and we'll switch the transmission back into its regular drive as opposed to the sport setting, and we'll just drive the Taos normally. And this is where the 1.5-liter turbo is a relatively refined engine. Now, getting the revs up above 4,000, you do notice that it's a little bit buzzy. There's a vibration coming through the shifter and the pedals and the steering wheel a little bit, but nothing too out of the ordinary for this type of vehicle. Again, the Taos, I would say, feels like it has some fire of a sportier driving vehicle. It's just the softly tuned suspension and the skinny tires result in lots of tire squealing, especially if you're pushing it to its limits a little bit more quickly. The seats are also pretty comfortable. These are a combination of the Cloudtex and the synthetic leather, and surprisingly they have decent bolstering to hold me in place, but they also are padded nicely, so on longer trips you can kind of enjoy this vehicle and enjoy the softer ride, although again a little bit more crashy over bumps because of the lack of an independent rear. Road noise, like I said, was higher. Wind noise isn't too bad, but remember, this is an entry-level car. You're not going to be, getting the quietest or most refined cabin, but Volkswagen's done what they can here to make this car feel a little bit nicer than its price would suggest. They've upgraded some of the materials in here. The infotainment system also has a new semi-floating design, although I really think that at 8 inches, it's starting to look pretty small. Volkswagen has a bigger 12-inch display, or they even had a 10-inch display in the old ID Buzz, or ID4. They should have put it in this car, at least a 10-inch display, but again, most competitors have a slightly smaller screen. Corolla Cross, they just refreshed it and now it has introduced a 10.5-inch screen. Subaru has almost 12-inch display. Honda has a 9-inch display. And then Hyundai has the 12.3-inch display, the dual 12.3-inch display. So Volkswagen's screen here is starting to look a little small. I'm imagining they're going to eventually update that when they redesign the Taos. But this has been a relatively strong seller for them. So it's important that they keep it fresh. Now, in terms of the fuel efficiency, in my weeks worth of testing, I averaged around 25 mpg and mostly city driving. On the highway, I got about 32. So it was a lot lower than what the EPA numbers would suggest with its 13.2 gallon fuel tank. This vehicle was doing around 350-ish miles of range on a full tank. So not bad, but not the best. This is where Volkswagen supposedly is working on hybrids. A hybrid powertrain would significantly improve the efficiency of this car. But I mean, overall, if you're looking for basically affordable transportation, you want a subcompact SUV, you don't necessarily need the off-road capability. This has one of the most spacious cabins in the business. It has pretty decent tech, minus the slightly small screen. At least it has wireless CarPlay. Love the panoramic sunroof. I love how easy this car is to drive. I love how it's slightly sportier than some of its competitors as well. So there is plenty to like about the Taos, so it's pretty easy to see why it's been a strong seller for Volkswagen. I am just curious to know what the company's going to do as they go into the next generation, especially since I just drove the new Tiguan. The Tiguan feels like a budget Audi. This definitely doesn't feel like a budget Audi, but it very much feels like a slightly taller Volkswagen Golf. So it's pretty easy to see why, you know, a lot of people who are on a budget are easily choosing this vehicle as a family car. Now, with just under 66,000 units sold in America last year, the Volkswagen Taos actually had its best sales year ever here in North America, and sales have essentially been strong ever since this vehicle first came out back in 2021. So after spending a full week with the latest version of the Taos, it's pretty easy to see why, because for those of you who essentially want to replace your Golf, this makes a very logical alternative, and it also gives you the option of all-wheel drive. That's something you couldn't even get on the Golf. It appeals to Americans precisely because it has a big back seat, a big trunk area, and it's all packaged within this relatively small footprint. So in this particular class of vehicle, they're about this size, but they just don't have the amount of legroom and cargo capacity that the Taos offers, which is why this vehicle is so successful for Volkswagen. Now, in terms of the powertrain, the updates that they've made to the motor certainly deliver sufficient acceleration. Sadly, I never had a chance to 0 to 60 test the pre-refresh version, but 8.28 seconds is perfectly acceptable. It's right in between the two powertrains of the Subaru Crosstrek. I do wish that Volkswagen would offer a hybrid. That is coming from what I understand, but I'm imagining we're probably going to see it in the Tiguan first. We may have to wait until a next generation Taos to get a hybrid option. I would, again, strongly recommend going with an all-wheel drive version to get the added grip, the independent rear suspension. You do lose a little bit of cargo capacity, but again, if you're buying an all-wheel drive, most people want, or buying an SUV, most people want all-wheel drive. The infotainment system in this car is Volkswagen's older system, and I kind of wish they would have put their new MIB4 software with at least a 10-inch display, if not the 12-inch display. That would have been a nice addition. It is, going to remind you that this is their entry-level car because the interior isn't as quiet as some of the bigger Volkswagens, but it's certainly right around the same par as a lot of its rivals. So again, if you don't necessarily need the most off-road capable version of this class, you can easily buy a Bronco Sport or a Crosstrek. The Taos is certainly a worthy option against vehicles like the Corolla Cross, the Honda HR-V, and the Hyundai Kona. Now, if you guys are interested in purchasing a Volkswagen Taos, what's it going to cost? Well, this is where the Taos is also priced very competitively because you can get into a base S version for just under $25,000, around $24,995. Add around $1,400 if you guys want all-wheel drive. Now, most of you are probably going to step it up to the SE trim. That's an extra $3,000, just under 28 grand. That's going to include, the upgrades like the upgraded leather and cloth, Cloud-Tex upholstery, the wireless Apple CarPlay, the remote start, of course, the 18-inch wheels. Most of you are probably going to be happy with the SE. My particular test car is the SE Black for an extra $1,500. It includes the black wheels, black accents, the panoramic sunroof, bringing the total price to around $32,000 with destination and the color upcharge. Now, you can step it up further to the SEL to get the 19-inch wheels and a couple of other niceties like the fully digital cockpit instrument cluster, of course, and the navigation. That model will come in at around $36,000 with destination charge, which makes the Taos at the top end a little more expensive versus something like a Crosstrek. But again, keep in mind the Taos offers more cargo and more interior space versus the Crosstrek. So if you guys don't necessarily need the extra capability that a Crosstrek gives you, you should definitely put the latest Taos at the very top of your list. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2025 Volkswagen Taos. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.